Whew, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one. So it got like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was number 1 on Netflix globally. It was the most expensive animated series ever produced. So by every measure, every metric, Arcane Season 2 is an absolute triumph. So why does scrolling through the fan forums feel like I'm attending a funeral where nobody's allowed to cry? The word that keeps reappearing is rushed. And the feeling that keeps resurfacing is confusion. And the question nobody can seem to answer is, why didn't this hit as hard as Season 1? Well, as a famous critic once said, you may not have noticed, but your brain did. I think Arcane Season 2 is a case study in what happens when the people who understand game design are left alone to tell the story, without the people who actually understand storytelling. Let me explain. I want to start by talking a little bit about the person who I think was probably most directly responsible for why Season 1 came out as good as it did, and that's Ash Brannon. He is an Emmy Award-winning scriptwriter. He's responsible for Toy Story 2 and a slew of other things. With him, we also have these other veterans. We have David Dunn, we have Molly St. John and Ben St. John, and just this handful of others, and they wrote the episodes that fans cite as the best ones. Oil and Water, Happy Progress Day. These are episodes that are celebrated for their political nuance and their character depth. Ash Brannon was actually personally responsible for Episode 3, The Base Violence Necessary for Change. And he wrote this first before he wrote anything else, before he allowed any of the other writers to write any of the other episodes. It had to start here because he knew the success of this story would hinge on this one very specific key moment, and it is by far the best episode in the entire series. You see, a writer's room isn't supposed to be just a bunch of people constantly brainstorming and guessing where the story is supposed to go, especially if they're already filming it. It is supposed to be a stress test environment for a completed creative vision. In other words, someone better already have a story in mind before the writer's room ever gets assembled, because this is where plot holes get caught. It's where pacing problems get flagged. It's where character contradictions get challenged. Somebody in the room has to ask the very uncomfortable question of, hey, wait a second, does this actually make sense? So now let's talk about the people who wrote Season 2. We've gone from our original 13 writers down to 3. We have Christian Link, who is the showrunner. We have Alex Yee, who is the co-creator. And we have Amanda Overton, who is the executive story editor. And that's it. That is the whole room right there.
Where the hell is everyone?
Now, Link and Yee, they're from Riot Games. These are Riot Games veterans. They're the ones that built the game. They know the lore better than anybody else alive. But here's the thing about knowing lore. Knowing the lore is not the same as knowing story structure. Now, you got to understand that production kind of went through hell when they were putting this together. It was put together during COVID, so there were a lot of collaboration issues that they had to take care of. A lot of this stuff was done remotely over Zoom. It really took away from a lot of the spontaneity, a lot of the problem solving that you normally get when a group comes together. So they didn't have any like the whiteboard arguments, and there was nobody in the room to say, hey, I don't think the audience is actually going to follow this leap. I think we need to redo this. Nobody there did that. They just wrote and went. So this is what's commonly referred to as the echo chamber effect, right? This is when core creators are the only ones who have any sort of voice in the room. So they just assume the audience can follow all of these crazy leaps, even when the only ones that can actually follow this and make sense of any of it are the ones who've lived in this world for years. So like gamers, they'll see Victor becoming a god and think, okay, that's his arc. That makes perfect sense to us. The rest of us, which is the vast majority of the viewers, yeah, we're looking at this and we're like, Victor became a god. Wait, what happened to the guy that had the cane? What the fuck is actually going on right now? What is happening? The creators, they knew where they wanted the story to end up. They just kind of forgot to build the road that gets all the rest of us there. And it does get worse, because of course it gets worse. So reports suggest that Arcane was originally conceived as a multi-season saga. Some fans estimated that this was supposed to go on for like 4 or 5 seasons, but there were a lot of internal decisions, issues with rumored production costs, there were streaming market, volatility, like a lot of these different decisions that forced the team to wrap everything up in Season 2. So, they had to land the plane. They had to land the plane right now, even though they were miles away from the runway. And this caused all sorts of pacing issues. One interesting little bit of research that I found is the amount of time that they spend in fight combat scenes or action scenes. So in season 1, you had about 25 minutes worth of actual animated combat. And in season 2, you had around 22 minutes worth. So just a little bit less, but pretty close to the same, right? But in season 1, we only had around 9 major action scenes. In season 2, we had something closer to 14 or 15, which were all these highly stylized, rapid cut sequences that were often cut to music, which were really compressed. It compressed all of the action. So you got more fighting, narratively speaking, but you had a lot less actual screen time devoted to the mechanics of the fight. Seriously, try to compare any of the fight scenes from Season 2 to the incredible set-piece battles that we had in Season 1. Now, these had a very distinct choreographed boxing and martial arts mechanic. These matches played out in real time and they felt brutal. Those hits would make you wince. I saw professional boxers and martial artists dissect these fights on their own YouTube channels, and they were all really impressed with how very realistic and grounded these fights were. In Season 2, we got the Jackpot Arm. I have no words for how much I hate this. In Season 2, Jinx builds Savika a new mechanical arm. And it has a slot machine built into it. So you pull the lever and you'll get a random power up. At one point, her arm has an extendo arm that shoots out a boxing glove attached to it that is straight out of a Looney Tunes episode. What the hell are we doing here? What is this? This isn't the grounded world building that we had from the first season. This is video game logic, except this isn't a video game. What was supposed to be a brutal, grounded story about class warfare and family trauma, it just gets tuned with weapons that are right out of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. All of the fight scenes become like these superhero spectacles. Characters survive things that would have absolutely killed them in Season 1. So all the stakes just sort of evaporate because the rules, apparently all the laws of physics, no longer apply. And then there's the other thing that they felt the need to do, which I really hate this a lot. So there are these 3 deadly sins of science fiction. It is time travel, clones, and the multiverse. If you pick any one of these things and put them into your story is in danger. If you pick 2 or more of these things, your story is pretty much dead. Season 2 gave us time travel and a multiverse. In episode 7, Pretend Like It's Your First Time, we spend the entire runtime in a what-if reality where everything is fine. Jinx never caused the explosion, Vi never went to prison, and everybody is happy. This is episode 7 out of 9. We should be accelerating towards the climax at this point. It is time to raise the stakes, but instead we are taking a vacation to another universe where nothing matters. This absolutely kills the momentum of the series because if timelines can diverge and if reality can be rewritten, then nothing we're doing, nothing we're watching is permanent. Every death can be undone. Every tragedy can be erased. Why would I care about this timeline when there's another one that exists where everybody is absolutely fine? Anytime you involve time travel or clones or multiverse, you immediately reduce the stakes of your story. And then there's the Warwick problem.
What the hell is this? What are you supposed to be?
So Vander, who's Vi and Jinx's adoptive father, and he was the emotional anchor for Season 1, he gets resurrected as a werewolf monster thing, and I was confused as fuck. I imagine if you played League of Legends, you probably jizzed your pants and screamed at the TV going, "Oh my god, it's Warwick, it's so cool!" But if you didn't, like most of us, you just stared blankly at the screen going, what the hell is going on? Vander is a giant wolf thing now because why now? What is happening? You know what? It's okay. It's fine. I'm sure that they're going to explain all of this. They're going to put it in the story side. Oh, oops, nope, he's dead now. I guess they're not going to explain anything, and that was pointless. This is fan service masquerading as plot. It exists because Warwick is in the game, not because the story suddenly needed him to be there. And we haven't even talked about the lore dumps. Like the Black Rose, the Noxian Shadow Cabal, all of this stuff suddenly becomes a major subplot of the show. And I guess for some fans, this is like lore payoff. But for everybody else, we're wondering who the hell are these people and why the hell should I even care? Season 1 worked so hard to develop these hard rules for like the hex tech and all of these other magical abilities. And all of a sudden in Season 2, now we have wild runes and a multiverse theory and arcane magic that can rewrite reality. And there's stones and runes and other weird things. And none of this shit was in Season 1. It is all just crammed into Season 2 because it's in the game. From the very beginning of Season 2, the show stops asking what serves the story and really just started asking what else can we shove into this damn thing before we run out of episodes. And if you haven't caught on to the fundamental error in all of this, the video game is all about moments. It is all about cool abilities and sick combos and lore Easter eggs. A story is all about cause and effect. It is all about character choices leading to consequences. Season 2 really just sort of plays out as a bunch of moments that are strung together. From a distance, it kind of looks like a story, it kind of sounds like a story, but all of the connective tissue, the because and therefore, is all missing from Season 2. You're familiar with the golden rule, right? The golden rule of stories, which is show, don't tell. Show, meaning we need to watch characters make choices, face consequences, and change in real time. We need to be with them with that struggle and in that journey. Tell means characters explain what happened, or we get a summary, or this is like all over the place in Season 2, we get a montage set to music. Look, a montage can be a useful tool in a story. It basically just compresses time when the details don't matter. So these are the training sequences or traveling or preparation, things like that. A montage is not a substitute for character development. You cannot montage your way through a protagonist's transformation and expect the audience to feel anything. Season 1 never uses a montage. Not once. And I know what you're thinking. Well, I'll get to that in a second. It shows every important moment and skips over the moments that don't progress the story or the characters, because this isn't the kind of story that needs a montage. The important stuff happens on screen. The unimportant stuff just doesn't exist. Season 2 is trying to cram so much shit into this little timeline that it has that it leans on these fast-cut, artistically drawn blurs of scenes to convey the most important moments in the story, which is probably one of the most bizarre narrative choices I have ever seen. Why are we skipping this? This seems important. I mean, it is important, but instead of watching it unfold, we're just getting the highlight reel. All right, before I go on, I will address the moment that you're already thinking about, and that's in Season 1, we do actually have a music video scene. It is the bridge fight between Echo and Jinx in Episode 7, The Boy Savior. But I really want you to watch at what this scene actually does. This very cool stylized sequence is this unique way to build character development while incorporating the lore of the video game in a way that doesn't break the world building of this very character-driven narrative. In this sequence, we get to see their childhood friendship. We see them as kids playing a game, swords versus guns, and it's intertwined with this slow-motion view of what's happening on the bridge in the present time. The music and the visuals are giving us context, it's giving us history, it's giving us emotional weight. And then, young Powder shoots young Echo in the chest, which leads us to believe Jinx just killed Echo in the present, the same way that she has destroyed everything else in her past. But everything is happening in Echo's mind. This is a memory. Time then rewinds and it plays again, this time in real time with Echo changing the outcome. I can express to you how absolutely brilliant this video game adaptation is. See, Echo's power in League of Legends is time manipulation. But instead of giving him a literal time machine, which would break the grounded reality of the show, they gasp Bill. They use his rewind as a narrative and an emotional device. The power exists in the storytelling language, not in the plot mechanics. It's the difference between asking, How do we translate this game element into something that serves the story versus how do we put this game element into the story? And it's decisions like this that led to the next big problem, which is just the vast amounts of exposition dump. You see, when you skip the scenes where things actually happen, you then have to explain what happened somewhere else. That somewhere is usually one character monologuing at another character.
He starts monologuing.
There is a difference between dialogue and exposition. Dialogue is two characters talking to each other. They have compelling wants, subtext, conflict. Exposition is one character talking at another character to deliver information to the audience. Season 1 was full of conversations. It was Silco and Vander in the bar. It was Vi and Powder at the hideout. It was Jason Victor in the lab. These scenes did double duty. They would advance the plot and deepen the relationships. We understood how characters felt about one another. We understood their worldviews. We understood their motivations. Season 2, however, is full of nothing but just constant exposition dumps. Characters explaining the Black Rose, characters explaining the Wild Runes, characters summarizing events that happened off-screen because there wasn't time to put it in the show, but they still had to talk about it because whatever happened off-screen, the consequences of that were somehow playing out in the current time, which didn't make any sense because we had no idea what the hell anybody was talking about. All the arguments, the confessions, the breaking points, they all happen between episodes. We don't get to see Vi and Caitlin's relationship fracture in real time. We see them together and then estranged, and we are left to fill in the gaps ourselves. This show trusts the audience to fill in a whole lot of the blanks, but that is not how storytelling works. We shouldn't have to imagine the best scenes. We should get to watch them because it's a visual media. I know a lot of this sounded negative. Here's the thing. I consider Arcane Season 1 to be some of the greatest animated storytelling of all time. Full stop. I have watched it probably 10, 12 times in a row. I've shown it to people who don't play video games, who don't watch animation, who had no idea what the hell League of Legends even was, and they were destroyed by it. They absolutely loved it, which is probably why I am being so hard on Season 2. Because it's not like Season 2 was bad. I mean, it's still better than most of the shit that's out there. The animation is still absolutely breathtaking. The voice performances are still phenomenal. If I had never seen Season 1, if like this was all the Arcane there ever was, I would probably say, yeah, it was really good. And then I would never think about it again. The problem is Season 1 raised the bar so fucking high. It proved that you could take a video game property of all things and turn it into something that rivals the best prestige dramas on television. It proved that animation could hit as hard as any live-action tragedy. It proved that you could make people sob over characters from a video game that they've never played. And I really feel like Season 2 could have gotten there. I feel like all the pieces were in place. The story was already set up. The characters were primed for these devastating and incredible conclusions. But somewhere along the way, all the experienced storytellers just left the room. So this left all the game designers alone with their lore and their timelines and their wouldn't it be cool moments. And nobody was there to ask the hard questions. Does this scene earn its emotion? Does this arc have room to breathe? Are we showing this, or are we just telling the audience what happened? And I'm not saying any of the people at Riot Games don't have imagination. But there is a fundamental difference between how you tell a story in a video game and how you tell a story in a television series. In a game, lore is experienced. It is discovered. All of these moments that the player fills in, all of these gaps, they get to do it with their own imagination and their own agency as they move through the story. In a show, however, you don't have that luxury. You have to build the emotional architecture, one brick at a time, one scene at a time. You cannot assume the audience will do the work for you. And you're definitely not going to get there if all you have is just a bunch of really, really cool looking moments that are just strung together like cutscenes. And I will say, ever since I watched Season 2 in its entirety, I have not been able to go back and rewatch Season 1. And it's not because it's ruined. It's not. It is still absolutely a masterpiece, in my opinion. But now that I know where it leads and I know what gets lost along the way, I'm finding it harder and harder to really fall in love with something when you know the ending is going to disappoint you. And that's probably the real tragedy of Arcane's Season 2, right? It's not that it was bad. It's just that it could have been so much more. All right, I'm going to go now, but you can see yourselves out. I waited 4 years for this shit.